This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Yo, everyone, welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Matthew Briggs. We have a very special guest in the building, but before we introduce him, let me introduce you to my amazing trio. First off, we got Twitter legend, Mr. BT. What's up, bud?
What's going on, guys?
And as always, since day one, I got Mr. Crenshaw. What's up, man?
How y'all doing tonight?
And guys, if you pay attention to Texans Twitter, watch KHPR Channel 2. You know this guy very well, Mr. Aaron Wilson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Good stuff. So we're glad you came back on. So before we kick into Texans, why don't we do a little bit of NFL news? All right, let's kick it off. Jimmy G has not passed his physical, and his contract could be voided and nulled. Aaron, let's start off with you. How rare is this? Does this happen frequently? We just don't know it, or is this a kind of a once in a lifetime situation?
It's actually more common than people would probably let you know. There are a lot of players that have injury waivers in their contract, and what a waiver is an acknowledgement of a pre-existing condition that might prevent the player from being able to play football, especially this season. It might heal eventually, but it's reasonable, and then you're ratifying that medical opinion when they allow you to still sign the contract. So there are players that the Texans have signed over the years that have injury waivers. Sometimes that could be because of a knee or a shoulder. They signed a player this year that's coming off labrum surgery, Denzel Perryman. So Denzel had surgery. He's still not practicing, as you guys have noticed. And Shaq Griffin had back surgery. He's not practicing. You can still pass someone their physical. It might not mean that they're ready to play football that month, the next month. But the reasonable expectation is that when you sign someone with an injury waiver, that they'll play football that year. And that's a worst case scenario for Jimmy G. And that was my understanding of him the whole time, that he had injuries, but that he would be able to sign a contract. So the Raiders have protected themselves with this waiver. It's one of the more extreme waivers that we've seen because it completely changed his contract. So that leads me to believe that his injuries were a little worse than the Raiders anticipated, and so they altered the contract. And because at that point, Jimmy's camp, Jimmy and his representatives, they didn't feel like this was going to be a problem that would stop him from playing. So the optimism is still there, but it did affect the way he was paid. He'll still make a similar amount of money than he was originally slated to and what they agreed to, but it's what caused the delay of his press conference. So all of that had to be ironed out. And there are, and actually I have copies of the deals, and I saw Jimmy's deal as well. That wasn't, really, I don't know, not the most earth-shattering thing. It's that, I will see copies of the deals. When I say copy of the deal, I mean with the signatures of the player on them. And eventually, yes, they go through the system, and I'll get a copy. And you'll see everything, all the boilerplate language, what percentage of snaps someone needs to play. You've probably seen some of the incentive clauses with the Texans players that I've outlined. None of them, I think, are super exciting, but there are some playtime thresholds for some of the guys, including Neville Hewitt and some of the other players, where they make more money if they play a certain amount of snaps or if they have certain statistics. And they're not the only team that does those incentives. But yeah, the contract itself, it seems like the Raiders are taking a bit of a risk to even have him as their starting quarterback. So, I think it was, this was a player obviously that was speculated about regarding the Texans at one point, but that wasn't his desire to come here. And they had other plans to start fresh with a rookie anyway. So a lot of that stuff was really not based in fact, based on what he wanted and based on what the Texans were looking to do. But yeah, I think, hopefully Jimmy G can, he does always eventually get hurt. That's been his MO throughout his career, but hopefully he can get on track and, see Jimmy G playing football this year. Because I think when he's healthy, he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah, agreed. Crenshaw, I'll kick off with you. What do you think about all this?
Well, I'm glad he's not a Texan because a lot of fans wanted him. I'm glad we don't have the headache. But I mean, that's what you get with Jimmy G. You're gonna get injuries. You're gonna get limited passing. But the guy, he's a winner throughout his whole career. So I still feel like it's a good move for the Raiders. And like Aaron said, I hope he gets back on the field because I'm ready to watch and troll. That's all I want to do right now.
BT, I kick off to you.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, you sound more optimistic than I think some of the people that I've been seeing, including Mike Florio, Megan Hall, like a bunch of people have been saying that they think that Jimmy G may not play. And if he doesn't, they're stuck with Aiden O'Connell. And then they would be in the running to try to get Caleb Williams. And now I'm pretty sure that's an exaggeration. However, the thing that does kind of shock me a little bit is not necessarily that amendment exists or however you want to call it, but the fact that they took that risk when they could have just stuck with Derek Carr another season. Like that kind of, I don't know, it seems a little odd to me. I do think that if he doesn't play and they're stuck with Aiden O'Connell, what are they going to do? Are they going to actually try to win games, or are they going to go in the running and tank for Caleb Williams? And the other thing is, what's going to go on with Josh McDaniel? Because he was horrible last year. Like Derek Carr called him out for basically predetermining where the throws should go. And so if Jimmy G doesn't play and they have to work with Aiden O'Connell and they're going to suck anyway, does McDaniel stay there? I don't know. I think the Raiders are a little messed up right now, if you ask me.
Interesting ideas. Yeah, I would say for Mike Florio, one of the reasons why he would be as gloom and doom is to create as much attention as possible in terms of clicks, because that's Mike's style. So yeah, Mike, more power to him if that's what it takes. So do you, Mike, be that guy? And then as far as the Raiders and these tanking scenarios, which he loves to talk about, and he's already saying the Cardinals aren't trying to win and this and that, he's the same person that will praise someone for tanking, but then if the Texans had done that in the last game, he would have been, dunking on them. So, it's a lot of just typical. I would just say for most people, I would always consider, does the information I'm getting, does it have any agenda, or is it just being reported plainly? Is there maybe some agenda there, whether it's to gain attention or favors done? I don't know. I think in this one, it's mostly just seek attention. I'm not worried about it. And again, like whether he plays or doesn't play doesn't really, affect me one iota. It's, I'll see if he plays. But yeah, I think if you're a Raiders fan, I'm sure it's a very high interest and anxiety. But I think that they should probably calm down a little bit. In my opinion, he'll wind up playing. That's my understanding, is that he'll play this year.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's move on to some other news. I didn't hear everything, so I'll let BT discuss it. But it looks like Sandy Sharp is out over there with Skip Bayless. So, BT, go ahead and explain.
Yeah, and it was just happened literally probably 15 minutes before we started the show. But they announced that Fox Sports has bought him out. Shannon Sharp is leaving FS1's undisputed. So the question now is, who is going to be across from Skip Bayless? I think Shannon Sharp was the reason why Undisputed was a watchable show. I think Skip Bayless by himself is frankly unwatchable. I know Skip isn't watching this show, so I can say whatever I want, but yeah, I mean, I think that he goes kind of crazy a little sometimes, and he needs someone rational to pull him back. So without Shannon Sharp there, I don't know who that person is going to be, because if it's not someone like that's strong enough, like Shannon Sharp, it's going to fail miserably. Who they bring on.
Maybe Max Kellerman. That's something I would keep an eye on, because he's been pushed to the side at ESPN by Stephen A. And it makes me wonder if maybe Max could be a good foil for Skip. But I don't generally like to watch any of those shows. They did not entertain me. I covered Shannon when he was playing for the Ravens for a couple of years, and know him to be a very high character, a good guy, and really smart. So, yeah, I feel kind of bad for him that he had to be with Skip for this many years. So, yeah, I wish Shannon, well, I can tell you this, Shannon doesn't need to do media if he doesn't have to do it. He could do anything else. He's got other businesses. He's got a lot of things going for him. He's a great guy. Yeah. So when I covered him in my younger days, it was guys like Ray Lewis, Rod Woodson, and Shannon and Tony Siragusa. And so you're around a lot of legendary guys, very funny guys too. He's one of the funnier guys I've ever covered. He was hilarious. He was the guy they called plexiglass, and he was just a funny guy. I think he would spend a lot of time thinking about the funny lines he would say. But I hope he's back in media just with someone else he enjoys working with. But, the times I did see it, it did seem tense. It didn't seem like a good interaction. They didn't seem like friends, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe, Aaron Wilson could be the next guy for Skip Bayless.
Oh, I appreciate it. I think, and, knowing myself, that probably wouldn't be on their list. But, yeah, I mean, my style is, a lot different. And I'm just not that opinionated. And I intentionally do not keep up with a lot with the other sports. So, yeah, definitely. Your NBA Finals questions, they're going to go right over my head. I just don't. I only pay a lot of attention to things that I'm paid to report on, which is the NFL.
I got you. Chris, what about you? What do you think?
You could tell the writings on the wall the last year and a half. They've been together, I think, about 7 years. I mean, it's a great show, great entertainment, back and forth. Skip, with his opinions on LeBron and things, and Shannon loved LeBron, wearing the GOAT mask and everything. But I think Shannon can hold his own. Because he got a podcast, Club Shay Shay does a great job at that right there. I think he hold his own. I don't think he need a co-host. I think he could just do his own thing. Like, what's the one guy that just got signed with ESPN? Help me out with that, BT.
Who just got fired from ESPN?
No, he just got signed with ESPN. The punter,
Pat McAfee.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like Shannon could do the same thing that Pat just did. So that's my opinion on that right there. I can't wait to hear what Skip's going to say about this, because, like I said, everything just happened right now. He's going to make a big circus of it or whatever. But I'm kind of sad to see the show go, because, like I said, I used to watch it. I still watch it. So.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on and see what happens. Till then, let's talk a little bit more some news. This kind of involves the Texans. Tampa Bay Buccaneers OTA. There's a lot of videos of Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield being Baker Mayfield, not doing so well. And then you got the stuff we said with the Raiders going on, and then Aaron Rodgers not being able to practice with his, was it quad injury? Calf injury. Aaron, is there any possibility of maybe a Davis Mills trade to one of these teams that kind of need another option at quarterback?
No, my understanding is that, from my sources, that Davis Mills is not available at this time to these other teams. So I've reported that on Twitter and on KPRC at click2houston.com that no, he's not available. So that can always change. But yeah, the answer has been no. Okay. He's in their plans. He's currently still their starting quarterback. I know that CJ Stroud took the majority of the 1 reps today, but that doesn't mean a lot until they make a declaration of change of status. For now, it's still Davis, and at some point, yes, we expect CJ to overtake him, but for right now, it's just the Davis Mills show.
Okay. BT, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Aaron is right about that. I don't think that they are looking to trade Davis Mills. The one thing I would like to know, however, is what happens if a team gets desperate. Right now, I think that everyone could say if a trade would happen, that Davis Mills would likely go for a 5th or 6th or so. But if a team was desperate and offered a 4th, would the Texans consider it? They gave up a lot of draft picks to get Will Anderson. They took C.J. Stroud at 2. Every single pick other than C.J. Stroud was a trade. So we did give up a lot of draft capital. Could there be a situation where they try to recover some of that draft capital? That would be the question. Now, I know it's not in the cards right now, but if Tampa decides, hey, we don't want to tank, and Baker Mayfield sucks, and Kyle Trask, sucks. Kyler Murray is out for the entire season, for example, and they don't like the guy they just got from U of H. There's or Jimmy Garoppolo is hurt and he can't play, and they don't want to take him. They want to play. Is there a possibility that a couple different teams could bump up his value? I don't know. I think it's a long shot. I don't think that there's any easy answer here, but that would be the question: is there any possibility at all that come around November that he is on the trade block?
I mean, it's hypothetical. I would probably say, just like Nick Casario would probably tell you, check back then. There's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is no. That's what I have now. It's not a never. It's a no, not right now. And it could change, or he could be there the entire season. The flip side of it is that he's a good, affordable backup and a very team-oriented guy that I think is a good example. And I don't think he does anything to overshadow C.J. Stroud at all. The issue could be, I guess, if he has this strong preseason, the players are not really feeling C.J., and maybe C.J. hasn't quite solidified his status. I think that D'Amico and the staff and everyone would have a good feel for that and decide, well, you know what, let's play him when he's ready. Let's not put him out there yet. But, we're not anywhere close to that. And I would say from the spring football, we've watched 2 entire practices. We've seen a little bit of a rookie mini camp that was just stretching and light throwing. I wouldn't make any conclusions off of this. I have some opinions and ideas, but I really, really need to see these guys in some live action against each other in some of these joint practice sessions that they're going to have with the Dolphins and the Saints before I could really reach any kind of conclusion. In my opinion, there's way too much people making like these blanket assumptions about the team and what it'll be like, and this player is going to do this, the player that. I would say everybody should tap the brakes, but that's part of being a fan and enjoying all that stuff in the debate. And I get it, and that's probably one of the reasons why people pay attention to the things we write and report or talk about. For me, I just try not to get very caught up in a lot of that stuff. For me, it's just a news story. If Davis is traded, not traded, I'll deal with him when it comes. But I'm just reporting and telling you everything I know right now, which is that he's not available, not on the trading block.
Okay. All right. Chris, what about you? What do you think of all this?
If Davis Mills had value, that'd be a shocker to me. I don't think he has any value out there. It's too many other backup quarterbacks that's better, in my opinion. Like Mike White, he's out there.
There are general managers that have told me that they do like Davis Mills and have asked me about Davis Mills and have made, have looked into Davis Mills. So yeah, absolutely. Actually, there is interest in Davis Mills.
As a player or his character?
As a quarterback, as a player. Yeah. He went in the 3rd round. I mean, at one point, this guy was the number 1. I'm not a Davis Mills defender. I'm just saying, I think he played very poorly at times last year. At the same time, I'm just relaying and asking, don't shoot the messenger, but I'm telling you that other teams do like Davis Mills. I don't think that they're wasting my time or other people's time by by saying things like that. But I'm giving you the information if anybody wants to not believe it, but I'm telling you what I was told that he has interest. It's not like I'm saying like they're beating down the door, but no, there are teams that think that Davis is all right, especially as a backup.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's the case. Then he need to get some more reps then to up that value.
I don't want to betray any confidences, but I will say this: one of the teams I know that likes him and was interested in a potential trade has a great quarterback as their starter. But I'm not going to do any guessing. I'm not going to play guessing game with it. But it's a team that has a great quarterback.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
Kansas City. Okay, so we got it.
Maybe not.
Well, guys, moving on to some more Texan stuff. There was a press conference today with Matt Burke. Aaron Wilson, can you kind of tell us what part of the conversation of Matt's did you like, and what impressed you of the press conference?
Well, it's always fun to talk to Matt. He's a really smart guy. I think, he's not going to tell people, make any announcement. Obviously, it's D'Amico Ryan's place to make that announcement if he's going to call the plays or not. But yeah, Matt's kind of, I think, and D'Amico are tired of that topic. But when you think about, just things he was talking about, he didn't want to get into a lot. He's not trying to give out a lot of information as far as like, will Derek Stingley, run with the other team's top receiver? Will he shadow those guys? Will this happen? It was a short press conference, and I think I asked him about Will Anderson. That was my first question. It's the first time we've had a chance to talk to him since they selected Will. So yeah, I found that interesting, and that was something that I wanted to hear more about. I think one of the observations that he gave about CJ Stroud, and this has been kind of resonating with other players and coaches, is that after practice or during practice, he'll ask questions if he makes a mistake or if something like a coverage, in this case, a coverage that he wasn't ready for. So I think, he enjoys talking to the quarterbacks. I think, Matt is a smart guy that's going to have that banter with the quarterbacks, with players that maybe he's not even coaching. And, you want to give each other a good look. You want to challenge each other, whether you're the defense coordinator, whether you're the DBs. And Jalen Petrie made a similar point recently about CJ Stroud. So what we're hearing about CJ and Gerard Johnson echoed that sentiment when I talked to Gerard today, is that he asked a lot of questions. That's a positive sign. So yeah, just thinking about CJ and, one, being humble, two, realizing he doesn't have everything figured out, and three, this thirst for learning, that he cares, the knowledge. Some of these are intangibles, but they're also actions, right? So if someone's showing you that they, care about something, and even though they're talented, they don't think they have it all figured out, I think those are all encouraging signs. I think that's great, and we'll see how that translates into the field. But yeah, these are some of the traits of CJ Stroud. So what are we learning about CJ? Deeply religious, likes to credit other people, likes to praise teammates. Just one of these guys that seems to be winning over the locker room. And as a rookie, I think he's displaying some leadership, and that's encouraging. I think that's a positive sign. Whether that means he'll play well this year, who could say? He hasn't faced a single blitz. No one's hit him. Nothing's happened. And, they don't even have a lot of the secondary out there right now. So you've got, just Derek Stingley as far as the corners. You got Desmond King, but Steven Nelson's not there. You have Shaq Griffin is there, but not practicing. And then, you have a new injury with Kendall Sheffield. So Kendall's got a muscle injury, and that could keep him out a while. So, yeah, they're a little thin at corner, and there's no live bullets. So, I want to really reserve judgment about CJ, and I don't want to jump to conclusions on how he reacts to the first adverse circumstances. So, yeah, I would say just wait and see. I think people need to be very patient about Stroud and rookie quarterbacks in general.
Okay. Chris, what about you? What do you thought about Matt Burke's press conference?
Well, I was glad to hear him talk. He's like the forgotten coach here you know, he's like a player. He got to earn his respect because he has a sour taste in people's mouths from his days in Miami and a little bit of Arizona. I like how he said, you know, we're gonna run the 4-man front. And like Aaron said, I know he's sick and tired of who's calling the defense. He's the defensive coordinator. He's calling the defense. Yes, D'Amico's gonna have his input, but let that man do his job. And but I'm excited. I'm excited. I feel like that we're gonna do more blitz. You know, like they're gonna be better. I like what I'm seeing with Stingley and Petrie. He's coming back and looking even more good. And I like how CJ asked the coach, like, "Hey, you know, what are y'all doing to me? Because you know, you had me scratching my head right there. I like that right there. That he's learning on the job and everything. So I'm excited."
BT.
Yeah, I think what Burke said about CJ Stroud is actually awesome. I want a quarterback to learn, to ask questions, not to just think that he knows everything. You know, I think this is one of the difference that you see from Stroud versus Levis. And that meme wasn't just me poking fun. Like, there's a little bit of seriousness in there. Like, you know, I do think that he thinks he knows a lot more than he actually knows. You can see he has issues with mechanics. He misses a throw and he's still doing this. He's like, that he's that guy. So, you know, but going back in reality here, so because Aaron, you did mention some of the things about CJ Stroud, and I think people should kind of know, like, yes, we definitely can't crown him already as QB1. We can't crown him that he's going to be the franchise quarterback, but he did make some good plays today. So he was double teamed. We knew that, well, it looked like Pierce wasn't his first read, and he made a good decision and threw it to Pierce. It was a 20-yard pass. It hit Pierce's fingers, didn't end up catching it. I think that's more on Pierce than Stroud. But that's a good decision. He had some good throws. He threw to Collins a lot. So everyone, you know, that watches the shows know that I've been bad-mouthing Collins, even though I have his jersey right behind me. Because of his health issues and the way that he hasn't run his routes as crisp and clean that I think he can. But he targeted Nico a lot. He had that 30-yard down throw. I believe he was 6 of 8 on 7 and 7. The issue was when they went to 11-11. When they went on 11-11, he went 3 for 7. So he does have problems when there's a rush. We knew that going in. We knew that was going to be the issue. So I think that what we're going to have
there aren't really any real official stats from the practice, and it's also the practices. There is no full video of the practice. We're watched just so everyone understands what he's talking about. There's a live period as far as what media can report and do video of in the beginning. So there's no video of any of the things like this. It's just, you know, other reporters, credential reporters talking about what they think with the stats and, you know, doing some observations. I just tend to make more of a general impression. You know, if the Texans had cumulative stats, say, that they would share, which they won't, from the entire spring on what they consider to be completed, not completed, 7-on-7, 11-11, all those kind of splits versus cover 2 versus cover 1, all that stuff. Yeah, but I would just say, yeah, respectfully, I wouldn't go off of this stuff. It's, you know, these practices are not much, guys. And I know for the fans, it's a lot to overanalyze. I'm just telling you, as someone who's covered the NFL for a very long time, that ain't it. And it's not that big a deal. The practices, it's more the guys learning and like what kind of shape they're in, who's healthy. That to me is more important. But, you know, nothing CJ did really alarm me at all. I think, you know, he had some good moments in the 7-on-7. I think 11-on-11 is still probably not his forte yet. 7-on-7 by its nature should be easy for a quarterback. So he should have, if he couldn't complete those passes, then you busted on your quarterback. You made a big mistake. So yeah, no, I don't think anything today was a problem with him. If anything, I thought he had a good day out there. And there were, you know, some first string guys out there playing defense.
Yeah. I don't think there was a problem. I was just trying to say that I thought that the 11-on-11 kind of showed some of what we already expected. Not to say it was a bad day. In fact, I would have said that it was a great day for CJ Stroud. Both what the little that we saw on the field. Plus, in the press conferences, when we heard, like you were talking about, like Burke asking questions and so forth. So at this point, Jared Johnson said that he thinks that Stroud is basically learning quicker than he expected. Right, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of Stroud is learning something like quicker. I can't remember the exact phrase. I don't know if you remember that, Aaron, but even Jared Johnson said that that he's learning well. So I'm very happy what's going on. I think the only thing I was trying to say is that you're going to see him, I think, struggle a little in the beginning, even when the season starts, because that's where he struggled in college, and you kind of saw him, at least from the reporting that was put out, struggle in OTAs as well on the 11x11, and I think that that's okay. Like you got to give him time to get where he needs to get to. That's all I was trying to say about that.
Right. No, I'm just saying, like, when you're mentioning reporting from practice, there's no official record. There's,
Right.
It's like if you had a practice video, like if they would, put that out there, or if media had a lot of clips, but there's nothing available. So I'm making a really micro point. There is no report really. There's just a bunch of guys, the few of us, that have the credentials to be out there. But yeah, if everything is like, that's all secondhand. It's not like there's some stat sheet or really us knowing what the play is. So when I'm making just a really small point, I hope you guys take it in a good-natured way.
Sure.
There's nothing that I would take off of these things other than like general observations. But yeah, like the stats of practice and like counting. I mean, I can count drops, I can count some things, but yeah, I mean, if I thought it was that crucial, I would do a lot more reporting on this. I think I'm trying to give you guys like a taste of it, but that's just my style. Every reporter can do whatever they want, but to me, yeah, the practices. I mean, I remember I was actually looking on Twitter today. There was a guy, he's not here anymore, and he would do play-by-play of the practices, and some of the fans love that. But that would have gotten most people to unfollow you if you did that many, 20, 30, 40, 50 updates. This guy used to do that. But I don't want to bring up his name, but it's just it was bad. It was off-putting, and it really, there was no context of this, of these tweets and an ability. I'm not talking about anybody that works here anymore. He's not even in Houston at all. But yeah, I just I know that for the fans, it's very exciting and they can't wait. But I would just chill a little bit on this stuff. It is practice. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's one everybody keeps talking about OTAs. I just it's fun because
they're out there they're out there for an hour and 15 minutes.
Right.
To tell you what OTA practice looks like. About 15 to 20 is warm up. Then they run a little bit of routes. They do some individual drills. There is, no one can really touch each other. You can't, nothing like close to hitting. That's against the rules. They line up a little bit. It is not really full speed. And you're seeing, they're not showing you the good plays at the open practice. There are other practices that are closed and maybe they're different, but, we're not privy to that. And those other practices a lot of times are where, maybe some of the injuries have happened. So like a John Mechie III pulled his hamstring, but it was in a closed workout during phase 1. So yeah, he got injured and he's out till training camp. Or, like Hassan Ridgeway or Thomas Booker with some leg muscle injuries as well. And now a new one with Kendall Sheffield. So yeah, I mean, practice is practice, and it's not thrilling. It's practice, and maybe I'm a little jaded. I've been doing this a while, not as long as some of the older guys in the market, but a while. And yeah, there's literally nothing to get hyped up about the OTA.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to tell everybody is OTAs. Like you said, it's another practice, just kind of a warm up. But I mean, I get why fans are excited because it's one step closer to the season being here, one step closer to training camp. So I get it, but I'm with you, Aaron. I don't understand the big fascination with it because, like I said, it's just kind of like a warm up of sorts, especially for the rookies, right, and the younger guys. But Aaron, if you had to take away anything from these OTAs, what would you take away from it, positive or negative?
Some observations. Maybe I'll just go from offense to defense. We've talked a lot about the quarterback. I think that Davis Mills has looked sharp. He's had some good moments out there. We've talked a lot about CJ already. And wide receiver, I think Robert Woods established himself as the leader of the group, and he should be from an experience standpoint. In talking to Ben McDaniels, the receivers coach today, he's been very impressed with what Robert has brought to the table. And also he's hopeful for Nico Collins that he can make that leap in his third NFL season and take more steps forward. I think if he had been healthier last year, it was going to be a really good season. He was off to a solid start. And then with John Mechie, he expressed confidence that he will return. He will play this season. And even though he's injured now. So, that was good to hear. And John obviously has been through a lot with leukemia, missing his entire rookie season. And with Tank Dell, he loved his ability to get off into his routes, has good separation techniques, good ability to, get himself open, and separate, and has shown good hands. So and that's my observation too. And I'm not a professional receivers coach like Ben. When you think about the offensive line, I know that Larry Tunsil, he's not there because he doesn't need to be. And he wasn't there last year, and he had a good season, actually a great season, and that's why he makes $25 million a year. But they've had the other guys out there, with the exception of Kenyon Green. On the right side, you've had Shaq Mason and Titus Howard working together, and Titus, who is seeking a new contract, looks good out there, and Shaq, who's just got a new contract. And then there's a competition between Juice Scruggs and Scott Quisenberry at center. That's going to be a pretty good one to watch. And then, at tight end, today was our first day watching Dalton Schultz, and he's like you would expect. He's a very experienced tight end. He's very polished, and he understands spacing, knows how to catch passes very well. I think he'll be one of their top targets. And going to the other side of the ball, we haven't had a lot of the defensive line. We've had, some guys like John Grenard that had injuries last year. We've seen Jerry Hughes a lot. Jerry had a good season. Jerry looks just like he did last year, very quick and explosive. I think if they can get a full season out of John, that would help them a lot. No Malik Collins, no Sheldon Rankins, and as I mentioned before, Hassan Ridgeway and Thomas Booker are injured. Roy Lopez looks really good. I think Roy's had a really good offseason in the weight room. It looks like he's really hit the weights hard. Same thing with Kurt Heinisch. I think they've got some depth now at defensive tackle. It's a stronger position, and when everybody's here and healthy enough to play, I think it'll be a good spot. Linebacker's really competitive. And talking to Chris Kiffin, the linebackers coach today, about Christian Harris, he said, man, jumps off the tape, run and hit linebacker, great speed, loves his passion, the way he attacks the ball. He agreed with me. I called Denzel Perryman a tone setter, a thumper. He's definitely got that going for him. And he's a Christian Kirksey. Everybody calls him Kirko. Kirko has been a real benefit to him in helping ease his transition, is very smart, understands the defense really well. And then, looking at the secondary, which I think could be a real strength for this team, and got a chance to talk to Corey Elmland, the passing game coordinator, and also to Dino Vaso, who coaches the corners. And everybody was talking about Derek Stingley's put on some muscle. You can see that probably in some of the photographs that have been released of him this offseason, whether it be from the team or from media. And I think it's mostly just his upper body. And they said he hasn't lost any speed. He looks just as fast and fluid to me. I actually have an article coming out on that pretty soon at clicktohouston.com. And I think Sting is primed for a big leap in his second season. Same thing with Jalen Petrie. And everybody saw how successful Petrie was, how hard-hitting he was as a rookie. He just has to wrap up more, get into a better football position, and complete some of the tackles he could have made. And he made a lot of good plays on the ball and started to teach that, to get a guy that makes that many plays, that's that active and instinctive. And then, Shaq Griffin, he's got to get healthy. And hopefully by the fall, that's where he is. So, it gives them some outside depth. They didn't feel great about having Desmond King be the outside corner. They feel like he's more of an inside corner, more of a classic nickel. And so that's why they made that move to sign Shaq. It wasn't a big market for Shaq, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't fit their scheme. There weren't a lot of other teams that were really bidding on Shaq. He was marketed to a lot of teams, and they weren't biting on him. And then, going over to the safety position, Jimmy Ward, a lot of leadership. One of the reasons that their vision for bringing him in was to help teach the defense and set a tone to, kind of have an aggressive, tough, rangy guy like Jimmy that will throw his body around, and they know exactly what they're getting with him. And you think about some of the depth they have there. Look at an MJ Stewart and Eric Murray. I think they have enough, even with Jonathan Owens now with the Green Bay Packers. I think they're okay. If they have an injury, they have someone that can line up. They should be all right. And then special teams. I was talking about Frank Ross today, the special teams coordinator. He's pretty excited about Tank Dell. You got to tell. I was at the UH Pro Day. I was watching some, Frank's interactions with Tank, watching him. He was running those drills, and he couldn't really hide that he was very excited about Tank. So, and they wound up drafting him, and he'll, along with Steven Sims and Desmond King, I think they've got some talented returners. And then, the kicking game is in really solid hands with their punter and, the kicker with Tammy Fairburn, and also with long snapper John Weeks. So, yeah, I think special teams is solid. They were the top ranked special teams statistically in the Rick Gosselin annual rankings last year. So, yeah, Frank Ross does a great job with those guys.
Awesome. All right. Well, and we have a fan favorite portion of the show is where we get to ask you a couple questions. You okay with that?
I'll answer anything, guys. I'll try.
All right. Well, here we go then. I'll start off with your biggest fan, Mr. VT. Ask away.
So I gotta ask right now, who is the Texan player that you miss the most, that you would actually want to see on the squad, that is on the squad for whatever reason?
That's not on the team currently, just a player that's left within the past year, or
say in the past 5 years.
Wow, past 5 years. Great question. There were some players that I just really enjoyed dealing with because of the type of relationship we had and have from my interactions with them, just, knowing them and, having a really high level of trust and respect for each other. And among those would be Brandon Cooks and Justin Reed, really, really high level guys. And I know a lot of the fan base got upset with Brandon because typically that's what happens when a player doesn't want to be here anymore. Then the rejection feelings start. So, and he understood that. I think, for him, it was business, and it was just, he was unhappy, and it was the right thing for him to leave. I think a lot of people really misunderstood some of the reasons behind why he was so upset. But, I can't get into all of that, but I would just say that he had reason to be angry, and I understood his position, where he was coming from. But I think, just in respect to his privacy, a lot of it just couldn't be explained, and wasn't meant for the public, but it became kind of public. So it was something he was uncomfortable with, merely being in that situation, but he felt strongly, he had the courage of his convictions, and I respect his position. Ultimately, so did Nick Caserio, so did the Texans, and that was one of the reasons why they worked to ultimately complete the trade they did with Dallas after being unable to at the trade deadline. And remember, that was a big controversy. There were other things that happened behind the scenes last year. Things weren't always good. There's some things with issues with Lovie Smith and players. There were some things that happened, and that's very normal for football. I've never covered a season where, I actually had any real knowledge of the season or of players or people in the building and everything ran smooth. It's a pressure cooker. And so things happen. I think of, other players, I think of guys, maybe some free agents that have left, or players they cut, or guys that retired. I really liked Kareem Jackson, Jonathan Joseph, dealing with those guys. Obviously, covering J.J. Watt was great. Dealing with JJ's high standard for excellence. I only briefly looking back, with some of the players that are kind of at the end of their era here. But, I wish, I would cover Andre Johnson when I was covering the Ravens. I would cover a lot of Andre's games. I was just always really impressed with him. And getting to know Dre since I've been here, he's an impressive guy and really left a great legacy. And, you think about some of the other guys are just sort of just cool to deal with, like Bernard McKinney, who I think some fans really liked because of, he was a hard-hitting, tough linebacker, old-school type linebacker. Brian Cushing was great. On a different note, you had Nick Novak, because I know him from Maryland, was a great kicker to deal with and a really, really good guy. So got to know Nick very well and had known him. We have a lot of mutual friends, including the former Ravens special teams coach, Gary Zarno, that's his private coach. And now Nick is coaching and passing on his knowledge to younger kickers and, great person. But, yeah, those are some of the ones that jump out to me. But, yeah, just from the past, 12 to 18 months, Brandon Cooks, Justin Reed, and, I really liked AJ Boye. That's going back quite a few more years. But, yeah, I got to know AJ very well. AJ was really solid, really outplayed his undrafted status and earned that big free agent deal with Jacksonville. So I was so happy for him and proud of him when he got that deal. And a player, this one probably will be a little bit of a surprise. It was unfortunate that, Charles Omenihu, he wasn't getting the playing time he wanted. He was upset. He wanted to be traded. And I'm proud of him. And I still, talk to Chuck. I recently interviewed Chuck. And for him to get that big deal with the Chiefs, good for him. And, yeah, so I dealt with Chuck a lot and knew a lot about, Chuck's displeasure. And I thought the Texans did the right thing by him, Nick Caserio, by sending him to a winning organization in the Niners. And he played for D'Amico. And, he's someone that I think he's still maturing, still growing. And he's a great future. And I think he'll do outstanding things with the Chiefs. So, yeah, that's my opinion. But, I think it's something. Those are some guys that come to my mind.
All right.
Well, before you move on, Matt, I just want to make a quick comment about Charles Omenihu. I actually think that that was totally our fault because I think that we used him as a third stringer most of the time, and he was way more talented, and we just didn't give him the playing time. So, in my opinion, Charles Omenihu actually was right to be upset.
Well, yeah, he was and he wasn't. It was a situation of probably could have handled it more diplomatically. And you can imagine in this organization, once you become known as a malcontent or a complainer or a whiner or whatever, that it's hard to really then be judged off of, well, what are your football skills? Let's just make a football decision because then it's complicated by, oh, he's unhappy. There's a personal dynamic to everything. It's not just how good is the player.
Right.
All right. Crenshaw, what about you?
I got a two-part. One, besides yourself and Vince McMahon, who was the best person to come out of East Carolina University? And can you tell me your famous Mark Berman moment?
I would say with East Carolina, we've had some greats like Jeff Blake, Robert Jones, Chris Johnson, of course. And, we've had some outstanding football players from East Carolina. And, with Mark, I've always been impressed with how hard he worked, and he made everybody work harder. And I told him that at his retirement ceremony that, he really pushed everybody. I would be amazed by sometimes how he would juggle covering all of the different beats and all the different teams and the colleges. And he did have, obviously had a staff, but it was just him driving and working, these 17, 18-hour days. And so for those of us that just cover the Texans, there's only so much Texans news in one day, but he might be involved in an Astro story or a Rocket story. And for him to be a factor, he was always a factor on all of the beats and have long-standing relationships. I think, yeah, it's impressive. Some people have said some very nice things about Mark, and rightfully so this week. So, yeah, wish him well in his retirement, and was with him and his family yesterday and met his son-in-law. I already know his daughter Jessica, who works at Fox and has had me on, booked me, for shows as a producer for them. So yeah, just nice people, and yeah, I wish him well. I think, Mark was always like driven by wanting to get the story. He wasn't so much about opinions or being flashy. He was ultimately an old school reporter, and I thought he did it the right way. And he worked very hard, and he's just his dedication really stands out and sets a high standard. But there are a lot of hard workers. It's ultimately it's about results, and he got the results. I think that's usually what we're judged by, not how hard did you do it, how many calls did you make. So I again, like, not to pat myself on the back, but I get stories, plenty of stories, and guess what? I'm expected to. That's kind of the you wonder about like what it's like. Um, Sometimes it's not really a lot of excitement when you get the story. It may just be more relief that you did get the story, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after a while, like, you don't really enjoy the wins as much as you hate the losses, and you'll
Okay.
dwell on like, I didn't get that story, or this didn't go right. And in any given year, there'll be many situations. And I'm not going to disclose anything, but there'll be so many situations that I have to make a million choices about whether I'm going to report something, not report something, report part of something. And so I have to make a lot of good choices. And ultimately, that's kind of what I go off of a lot of, whether I consider that I had a good year. Did I make a lot of good decisions about, how I handled sources, or, interactions with staff, players, coaches. And ultimately, you want it to be, not this confrontational deal. You want to try to get along. You're not there necessarily to be friends, but you do want to have rapport and understanding. And so, like some of the gentlemen I mentioned before, like a Justin Reed or a Cooks, or like a Laramie Tunsil. Laramie's been involved in some high-profile contract things, but you won't get those stories, and you won't have the access to the guys if you don't have a rapport and respect. And for a player to trust you with their phone number is a big deal. For a player to give you information, an even bigger deal. For a player to give you quotations and honor or talk to you off the record is a really big deal. So yeah, for anyone that does it at a very high level, a lot of respect for them, because it is really tough, because the teams, they warn the players, not every reporter maybe will have your best interest at heart. And so the big thing for me is that you always have to be a man of your word. So whatever you tell a player, or a coach or whomever it might be, you need to be really straight up about things and treat them well. And that's something I think maybe, the players, they'll always appreciate that. I don't always like maybe open that window that much to fans. And a lot of it's just because I just don't feel super comfortable sometimes. But, we're talking about journalism, we're talking about the NFL, we're talking about the Texans. So, yeah, I figured just say a little something about that. And that was a great question to ask me about some of the guys that I like dealing with. But, ultimately what all those guys have in common is not just that they were good people, but that they were good with me. And that's a big thing for me, is because someone could say, oh, I don't like this person or that person, but I'm going to stick with, well, I understand that, but this is my experience with them. And, I've had that approach for a long time. There were some guys with the Ravens that had some off-field problems, and that wasn't all that they were, but that was part of who they were. And so, yeah, I like to try to really take the measure of a person, and no one's perfect, including myself. A lot of people have a lot of issues, but I think generally, hopefully you're talking about good people. And there have been some guys that don't work here anymore that I think that were good guys, but ultimately, like, their legacy might be a little bit different. It is what it is. Ultimately, I think there is I think sometimes in social media and in other things, people forget you're talking about people with families, and it can be a little cold out there. Yeah, I just think, I would say, I just always try to remember that, you're dealing with people, and, it's very easy. knee-jerk reactions and the character assassination, but most of the people that are doing it, they don't know these folks at all. They're all strangers to the majority. So yeah, I feel privileged to know and have gotten to know and will continue to get to know a lot of people, either out front or behind the scenes.
Awesome. Good answers, man. Love it. Well, guys, the worst part of the show is because it's the end. And again, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell all of our listeners and watchers where we can find your stuff and your social media?
Oh, thank you. I'm on Twitter at @AaronWilson_NFL. Yeah, please give me a follow. I'm on Instagram at AaronWilson7128. I do post some Texans content, including reels. I've been having some fun with making some reels. I made one today at practice and a little fun with that. And sometimes I let them pick the songs. Sometimes I pick the songs. Or I have to listen really carefully and make sure there's not anything like with cussing or off-color language. Just be careful to keep it clean. But yeah, I have a little fun with that. And sometimes some stuff with me and my wife, or maybe a nice meal or something like that. Just try to have a variety on my Instagram. And then I'm on KPRC2 on their television shows and on their website at www.click2houston.com.
Awesome.
And I'm on. I would be neglected if I didn't mention, and on Sports Talk 790 periodically. And always happy to go and talk with them on iHeartRadio, home of the Astros and the Rockets.
Yes, sir. BT, what about you?
Everyone can find me on Twitter at Brown Chubby Bear. I run spaces pretty much 4 days a week, if not more. So you can always want to argue about the Houston Texans. I'm your guy. I will have a new article up on fanbattlesports.com tomorrow. A lot of stuff that was discussed in OTAs and some of my opinions / projections. And me and Leo will do another space podcast likely tomorrow. So follow me on Brown Chubby Bear. Follow Leo at Leo is Forgiven if you want to be engaged in that podcast.
All right. Crenshaw?
You can find me at Fifth Ward, Crenshaw, everywhere. I'm all over.
Worldwide. You can find me at A1 Day 1 Texans. Like BT said, make sure you check the website, fanbattlesports.com. We have some great articles, especially the Texans ones. The Jaguars, Titans, and Colts are they're written well, but bad teams. So check us out there, and you can find the podcast at Texans Fan Battle everywhere. Until next week, guys, have a great night, and we'll see you then.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for 3.